Hello, Ian.
Oh, I wish we
Hello,
could
yeah.
see you. This green phone is really weird. That's me.
Excellent, Chad. So we are live streaming right now. Everyone is audible, I presume, at this point. Mic check.
Testing, yeah.
Very good, Jason. Thank you. And with this, our moderator today for our discussion, since we are moving to a more friendly environment, is Jason Pretty Boy of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. And he will be asking the questions and leading the forum.
I came for a debate of ideas. I'm not here to talk about stuff. I want to disagree with folks so that people see clearly where I stand on issues. I'm not here to discuss. I'm here to debate ideas. I did not come from Los Angeles to discuss anything. This is not a forum for me. I want you to hear our campaign's ideas and differences. We all agree on some basic things. We're green. I'm here to discuss ideas and debate ideas.
If you just want to keep the mic, you can start with your opening statement.
Oh, no, sir.
Yes, ma'am. There you go.
Greetings from South Central Los Angeles. I am the only black woman seeking the Green Party's nomination as president for a clear reason. By the end of this century, it won't look like y'all. It'll look like me and those sisters over there. So our party, like our nation, does not have a secession plan to ensure, unlike colonialization and imperialism that pulled out of the countries around the world, that administrative, technical, and operational is in place to maintain our society. For 400 years, black folk, red folks, yellow folks have been oppressed by, what is it called? Ignorance. But in fact, it's racist ideas. When I was at the ANC, I was perplexed. The ANC is where we meet annually to talk about things, and they presented us as presidential candidates. I got stunned because when I looked around, I didn't see people that hate me. I didn't see ignorant people. I saw people that were European American from the 15 tribes of Europe who had racist ideas that they had consumed by people who were producers of ideas. So I had to go home and deconstruct myself because I was racist too. Because I had looked at a group of people who were not what I had perceived them to be. I found this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I have eaten this book, and I think I've sold 1 million copies, because he clearly says what it takes on a personal level, on a political level, to change ourselves individually and our nation. So my name, Sudanam Kinamo Christian Moyawasife Curry. I was raised Muslim and Christian. My parents were incredible people. I'm one of 26 children, number 16 at the bottom. I'm a 4th generation farmer. So being a green is a natural thing for me because I love what? Soil, animals, plants. What we're going through is building, we need to, I would say, our campaign, to build the anti-racist party of America. Because then, when we do that, we raise the moral standard for not only ourselves individually, for our nation. We need system change, not a green deal, not a blue deal, a change. And I'll go into that further. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm Dennis Lambert. I currently live in Southern Ohio. I've lived most of my life in Appalachia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Southern Ohio. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. Come from a long line of veterans, people who've served their country and sacrificed not only their bodies and their minds for the principles that we are organized here under, but also for greater causes than themselves. I'm probably the last of my generation that has joined the military. I served 8 years in the Army as a supply specialist. I served primarily in medical units, hence I ended up getting training as a field medic. Two things that disappointed my father. When I turned 18, I registered as a Republican and I joined the military. By the time I was 3 years into my military service, I had dropped my registration as a Republican because of Newt Gingrich and his contract with America that would essentially create a greater schism in the VA claims processes, and knowing that if the veterans aren't being supported by Republicans, I can't be one of them. So the last 10 years of my life, I've dedicated the rest of my life and the last 10 years of my life to serving my community, and my community is the world. I do small things in my community to help elevate people, to help them overcome barriers to self-reliance. The last 6 years I've worked for a nonprofit organization. I helped 30 veterans in 1 month get employment and generated over $25 million worth of wealth for over 1,000 veterans that I helped in 1 year. In addition to that, we provided over 16,000 meals to veterans and hungry families. I am measured and calm because I've had a tempest in my life. I grew up poor, one of 5 kids raised by a single mother whose only possible income was tipped income. So I know about inequality and I know what it's like to struggle. We grew up on food stamps. And growing up on food stamps, you know the pain of that last week of having to decide, well, can we pay the water bill this week or can we let it slide just so we can have some chipped beef on toast for the next day or two? Our favorite meal was peanut butter sandwiches. I see a lot of this coming to the middle. There's no middle class anymore, honestly. We just have the wealthy and the poor. And a lot more people are going to be suffering through the systemic racism and capitalism punishment of poverty and the system that's set up now where people are punished for not being able to provide bail, or because they have to work they may forget about a court date. Poverty is being taxed by the government. Not only that, but our working people are supporting the government while the rich are enjoying socialism. We need to level the playing field for everybody. My platform, I hope, will make this clear that it is something that we can do. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that we're here on stolen land. I'd like to do that first. This is my first time to Boise, and are we on Shoshone land? I think it's Shoshone land, so I want to acknowledge that. So my name is David Rold. I'm one of the candidates for the Green Party presidential nomination. I live in Massachusetts, and I'm an anti-war activist, a revolutionary communist, anti-imperialist, anti-war activist. And I've been a member of the Green Party since 2003. The Green Party in Massachusetts is called the Green Rainbow Party, and I've served on the Green Rainbow Party State Committee since 2003. And for the past couple of years, I'm the secretary of the Greater Boston chapter of the Green Rainbow Party. So one of the big issues that I focus on in my campaign is calling to totally eliminate the U.S. military and weapons industry and getting the Green Party to call for that instead of just cutting it in half. The U.S. military serves absolutely no positive purpose. Everything it does is destructive. So cutting the U.S. military budget by 50% or even 70%, 75% is not enough. That would still leave hundreds of billions of dollars every year budgeted to fund genocide. The world can't survive many more years of the U.S. military wreaking social and environmental destruction. So this year I proposed to my state committee, Green Rainbow Party State Committee, that we take the position of that we want to totally eliminate the U.S. military, and my state committee approved this position recently, and we've sent it on to the GPUS platform committee. So I hope that this proposal will be considered this year. So I'm against all the U.S. imperialist wars. I want to stop them all. I stand with the people of every country who are resisting against U.S. imperialism. And I want to talk a little bit about regime change wars. the U.S. carries out regime change wars by vilifying the popular progressive governments and leaders of countries that the U.S. imperialists, capitalist imperialists want to overthrow. The imperialists falsely accuse the governments of human rights abuses and call their leaders dictators. The regime change wars proceed with economic warfare of sanctions and blockades, and then the U.S. regime covertly sends in armies of mercenaries and sectarian extremists to invade each country targeted for regime change. And my fellow candidates, Dennis Lambert and Howie Hawkins, they have said they're against regime change wars, but they don't seem to understand the concept. Dennis Lambert's told me several times that he thinks sometimes U.S. troops like illegally occupying another country are like serving a positive stabilizing function. And Howie Hawkins has last year sponsored a anti-Syria forum at the Brooklyn Commons where they had a speaker, Anand Gopal, who works for an organization that's funded with millions of dollars from the State Department and the Gates and Rockefeller foundations. And inside this forum, they were circulating a petition calling for the U.S. regime to continue funding the White Helmets, which is an organization of Al-Qaeda members who make these phony videos accusing the Syrian government of chemical attacks. 30 seconds. So Trump can shoot missiles at Syria. And also inside this forum, people organized a protest against Jamu Baraka, who was the Green Party 2016 vice presidential candidate, because Jamu Baraka opposes the war on Syria. And at a presidential debate we had in Missouri in August, Howie Hawkins said he supports the anti-China protest in Hong Kong with people waving American and British flags asking for Hong Kong to be.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
And David.
David, I'm sorry. I told you I was going to mess up the
You said
name.
you would, so you're
Yes.
keeping your promise. I appreciate
So,
it.
thank you very much for that. We'll move to our next candidate to introduce himself. Good morning, I'm Daryl Hunter, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you all today. I am a member of the Youngstown, Ohio Board of Education. I am a rabbi, I'm a former environmental attorney, I've been a former teacher and an educational administrator. And I come from a family in Newark, New Jersey originally, where I was raised in the projects by a working poor family. And for me, education was my ticket out. And I look around this country today and I see even less hope than I experienced when I was a child, a young African-American child trying to work my way out of the slums. And so the goal of my campaign is hope. I'm not going to swipe at anybody else here tonight. I think we're all here with the best of intentions, and we all need to work together to save this country, to save this planet. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that by a targeted plan such as the one our campaign has under the People of Color Bill of Rights to deal with the racism that's persistent in this country, to deal with access to justice issues, to deal with the educational and environmental racism, to deal with the genocide taking place on our streets on the part of law enforcement. But we're also going to deal with the universal issues such as housing, a universal right to housing, universal right to food, water. These are human rights. We support the Green New Deal, and the Green New Deal has a plan for 100% renewable energy and, of course, millions of jobs to not only stimulate the workforce, but to help save this planet. But we also believe global climate change needs to be addressed globally. So our campaign has the Green Path Forward, which is our effort to engage in more fruitful diplomacy with the countries we have been trained by the powers that be to consider our enemies, but the countries that are also the world's top carbon emitters, and we need to make friends with and have peaceful diplomatic relationships with in order to help save this planet together. Countries such as Russia and China. We believe in single-payer health care. No one should have to suffer through poverty and a downturn in health because they don't have the means. We believe in reparations for African Americans, for descendants of slaves brought to this country. We don't just mean a check, we mean a reparative process that heals and empowers communities. And we also believe in indigenous sovereignty in this country. We want an end to corporate personhood. When they say that a corporation is a person, they're not really saying they put them on the same level as you. What they're really saying is that they're more important than you, and their actions show that. We're going to put an end to that. We believe in local community control of education, which is what they tell you you have, but in communities like ours, we're subject to a state takeover where they profit off of the suffering of children who are in our failed educational system. We believe in community control of policing. We believe in revamping policing from the ground up. We're not just going to reform, we're going to tear down and we're going to build it back up so it genuinely serves communities. We are an anti-war campaign. We're going to close all those bases, and we are going to focus on peace and build a Department of Peace. We believe strongly the best defense in this country is a well-educated citizenry and a fair and equal society. To close, the focus of our campaign will be an end to privilege, an end to economic privilege, an end to white supremacist privilege. And we are going to focus our campaign on building a fairer and a greener America for all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Hopkins?
Good afternoon. It's good to be in Idaho, and it's good to see a Green Party getting started in Idaho, because we need them all over the country, because the two major parties are not solving the problems that we have to face. My name's Howie Hawkins. I'm from Syracuse, New York. I'm a retired Teamster, and before that a construction worker, but that was mainly to pay the rent. What I've been doing, my main thing has been being active in movements. Going back to the 1960s, I came up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we had the movement, capital T, capital N, civil rights, anti-war, environment, and I very early concluded that we need an independent party of the working class for democracy, socialism, and ecology. And that had to do with, failing to fight the racism of the Goldwater white backlash and the Democrats seating the Dixiecrats instead of the Freedom Democrats in '64, escalated in Vietnam, and I've been at it ever since through independent politics. I was at the first organizing meeting for a National Green Party in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1984. So, now I didn't plan to run for president. I'm retired, I had other things I wanted to do with that little pension I'm getting. But a group of people had a Glad Howie campaign, diverse in terms of race and gender, sexual orientation, age, and geography, from Matt Gonzalez in San Francisco, the almost mayor of San Francisco back in 2003, to the late Bruce Dixon, who was a close friend in Atlanta, and a lot of people in between. And so they convinced me. And so we're out here, I'm out here as part of a collective leadership representing all of them. And we have two basic purposes in this campaign. First is building the Green Party. This is a tough year. Anybody but Trump has scared people stupid. We got to build the Green Party so we can elect thousands of people in the next election cycle, primarily at the local level. So we're about helping all the states get on the ballot. We're about helping the Greens become organizers and not just activists who show up, but who know how to expand the base, particularly among the working class, people of color, and youth. And about building unity within the Greens and on the left. And I'll just say what was said about me. That's on the same par as Hillary Clinton on CNN saying Jill Stein is a Russian asset. Those kind of smears have no place. We need unity in the Greens and we need unity in the broader left. And I'm running on 3 life and death issues that I'm headlining, that we're facing. That's why the Greens got to step up. The climate crisis. And we got a eco-socialist Green New Deal that is about taking over the energy sector, the railroads, and manufacturing so we can build this thing out in 10 years, which the climate science says we need to do. Just like during World War II, the federal government took over a quarter of manufacturing capacity in order to turn industry on a dime into the arsenal of democracy to defeat the fascists. We got to do nothing less now. Second crisis, that's life and death, is inequality. Inequality kills. It's been growing since the 70s. Neither of the capitalist parties has any idea what to do about that. We have a 20-year life expectancy gap between our richest and poorest counties. So we're proposing that economic bill of rights, which has been on the agenda since FDR called for it at the end of World War II. The civil rights movement turned from civil rights to human rights and put it on the agenda at the March on Washington, the Freedom Budget, and the Poor People's Campaign. And then the third issue is the nuclear arms race. We have got out of the treaties, we're escalating, we're modernizing our forces, so what I think the Green Party can do, because nobody in the two major parties are talking about this, we need to demand no first use, unilateral disarmament to a credible minimum deterrent,
30 seconds.
and then negotiate with the nuclear powers that didn't participate in the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons that 122 nations signed on to 2 years ago. And the campaign to get that got the Nobel Peace Prize, and nobody in this country hardly even knows that. So the Green Party needs to bring that issue around those demands. And I hope our congressional candidates, as well as our presidential ticket and our local candidates, will bring that to the fore, because it's a life or death issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Is it all right? Yes, all right. My name is Chad Wilson. I'm obviously running for the nomination of the Green Party for President of the United States. I want to start with a quote from Thomas Paine in Common Sense. It's the introduction. He says, "A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right, and raises at first a formidable outcry in defense of custom, but the tumult soon subsides. Time makes more converts than reason." I wanted to start with that because we have to understand that people are on different timelines in their life at different points. So when we reach people, we have to reach people based upon where they are at in their process and what's going on. So as a party, the unification has to come with saying, okay, what are we building together? What kind of atmosphere, what kind of platform is the Green Party going to be that's going to allow people to come from wherever? Because I see a lot of toxic rings, bashing, this person's a Republican, this person's this person's that, this person's that, rather than saying, here's a place to have these discussions. Here's a place for us to battle it out. But it seems like there's a lot of people that, of course, they don't want to talk about the internal issues, which is the other part that's keeping the party from growing. We can talk about all this stuff all day about what our platforms are, because we are running under the core pillars. We all share the basic same value.
Mr. Wilson?
History that we can connect like this. Well, that we don't, obviously. But ability.
Yeah. Just a refresh.
That's not quite what I wanted to do.
Everybody should be able to be fed. Everybody should have the opportunity to live a quality of life. And we have those resources now, we just have to organize them. And the Black Panthers had the plan already. We just need to be able to do the same thing as a party and bring people together. And organize what we have. I want to do a marching band or protest, a march. We need musicians, we need people out there creating morale. It's the vibe, it's the energy that we're giving off to people. That's what's so important. You can't tell everything about a person in a conversation. That's why it's important to listen to everyone here. Is that right? Is that time?
1 minute.
1 minute, all right. Everybody's voice here is important, and it's something that the Green Party has failed to do, is provide plenty of ample opportunities for all of us to hash out all these things. And you got some people believe in Russiagate, believe in Mueller, and then obviously some people are less pro-war. Like there's a lot of intricate things that we need to be able to show that we can hash this out, but still be on the same team. Hiding and sweeping corruption on the rug in our own parties is not making it easier for people to come. Because once these Bernie cats and once all these other people get screwed over again by the establishment, they're going to want to go somewhere. And if we're not prepared for that, then we're going to miss another opportunity. You have to wait another 4 years because the president, even though they have the things in position to keep us out, to keep a third party out, it is important for some reasons, because it is the most important election that gets people out.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shotton.
Oh, okay, is everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hi everyone, I'm Ian Chapman, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I am an anti-imperialist, I'm an anti-colonialist, anti-capitalist. I want to give a Hulu shout out and also acknowledge that where I am in Baltimore, Maryland, and also where you all are is originally native land that was settled in by the native people. I wish I could give you my full platform today, but unfortunately I cannot. I'm currently involved in a boycott of the National Green Party because 5 of the lovely people that you see here today will disappear off the Green Party's national ballot in next month. I have no idea why the Green Party has chosen to take this course of action. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think we can easily have 7 candidates on the ballot for the Green Party. The Democratic Party has never had a debate with less than 8 people on the stage so far. Earlier this week they had a debate with 12 people on the stage so far. And guess what? That meant a lot more eyeballs, people tuning in from all different parts of the Democratic spectrum. So why the Green Party National has decided to take this egregious step and kick 5 of us off the ballot, myself included, is disturbing to me. I'm not asking any other candidate or any other person to join me in this boycott. I truly believe in the work of the Green Party. However, I personally feel it's my responsibility to point this out to any new organization that I encounter. And I wish I could tell you more about that today, about my platform, but unfortunately, because of the boycott, all I can speak about is the active boycott that I have on the Green Party. Except for the fact that Mr. Huff said it's a complete lie, he's a Russiagator. You can look up on the website, check out pretty much that makes an interview with him. The way he smeared Jill Stein when he got interviewed tonight is an abomination. And I don't understand how he has to stick by his statement or walk or apologize to Jill Stein. And what some other candidates today does not believe in the Russiagate narrative. And almost every candidate here today has signed a joint letter, at least at one point, calling for more fairness in the Green Party primary, except for Mr. Hawkins, which is very, very unfortunate. We hope you put a decision on it. And I do apologize, but I understand that you all are a new Green Party out there in Idaho, but it's my responsibility to bring this to the attention of as many people as possible. So I appreciate you letting me say that today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlagman. Thank you very much, candidates, for your introductions, for your very short biographies for those of us that aren't familiar with you. At this time, we will move into the questions. Mr. Wilson, Mr. Schlagman, will you be responding to those questions, or is that part of your boycott as well?
I will not be responding to any issue specific. I'm sure the candidates can handle that. If anything pertains to the party infrastructure, I will respond.
Which is important.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will open the questions. Basically, 2 to 4 minutes for your answers. Each of you can take the question in turn, or if you feel that you don't want to answer that question, or don't have an answer for that question, you are more than welcome to step out of the questioning. If you or you are referred to in that question in the answer period, you will be given a rebuttal time of 2 minutes. The time for the questions, 2 to 4 minutes, 4 minute being the maximum. I will once again tell you at 3 minutes that you have 1 minute left. And then following this, we will have a 3-minute closing where each of you will finally give your final thoughts and opinions and why I believe that the Green Party here in Idaho should vote for you. So starting off with the questions. A lot of these questions are going to be very Idaho-centric because you are here with the Idaho Green Party. And so a number of them, again, you may not have an answer for, but if you take your best shot, that's always a good thing. In Idaho, land and water are king, and we probably know that most of your views on public lands are pretty much the same. You all sit in the same arena with that. In Idaho, though, especially with the advent of our ultra-right-wing conservatives, there has been talk to actually take them out of federal purvey. What is your opinion on that? Should they be left in for federal purvey, or should they be taken out, and why? And we'll start at the end with Mrs. Moyowazi Curry.
It's Ms.
Ms.
Moyowazi Curry. If folks can say Schwarzenegger, they can say my name.
All right, move past the mic.
Moyowazi. You can say Empress or Queen if you're that hard.
Empress or Queen?
I'm 57, I can pull that off. Okay. It is critically important for your state, for our nation, for the planet to save soil. I'm a viticulturalist, I grow grapes. So soil is critical. So instead of land, I say soil, because we need soil for everything. Coming here, I've taken almost 300 pictures of trees. Being a Californian, we don't see the changes. You are blessed and favored with this beautiful earth. So yes, I am totally for land protection, keeping it public, and clearly to not do the fracking. I read something that folks are against fracking, definitely. A few of us attended the mayoral forum on Friday, and this issue came up several times. So yes, it is critically important for soil, land, water, air to be protected and to be saved for the next generations.
Thank you very much, Empress Queen. Is that correct?
Oh, come on,
Start calling you
come on,
EQ.
make it a joke. Pseudonym is fine.
You're EQ from now on.
Oh no.
Mr. Lambert.
I believe, I also am a farmer. I've grown my own food and produced food to donate to food pantries to give to needy folks, as well as my neighbors, and provide as much as I can for my community with the skills, knowledge, and ability that I have. I believe the earth is sacred and that we should be taking care of it to the utmost degree. I believe that we should, as soon as possible, any federal lands that were seized from natives that are federal parks should be returned to those native tribes. And we can easily do that. I've been advocating for the Shawnee to get land in southern Ohio for the last 15 years that the state has abandoned as useless and worthless, which was actually a settlement for the Shawnee in the 1700s. I believe, as I said, the land is sacred, as is the water. It's where we come from, and if we don't respect where we come from, then we don't have our identities anymore. We need to protect this because our life is tied to the land. Too many people are in urban deserts where they're surrounded by concrete and don't understand how nature works. They don't understand the cycles of the seasons. As somebody who grows their own food and raises their own animals, I have to pay particular attention to when I plant my seeds, when I put them into the ground. A lot of this stuff is because of dramatic climate change, is severely shortening growing seasons. Over 1 million acres in Ohio was not planted this year because of climate change. I myself was not allowed to put my garden in for 3 weeks because of late frosts, and then early frosts this season cut my farming 2 weeks late. So I am well aware of the climate issues. I will be releasing my renewable infrastructure investment program, which will touch on agriculture as well as a lot of these other issues. I'll be releasing that here in the next couple of weeks, and I hope if you go to my website, dlpotus2020.com, and follow my website, a lot of my information is on there. I'm welcoming anybody to submit a question, and I will answer to them with a video response directly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lambert. Okay, well, the so-called United States is not a legitimate country. It's a illegitimate white settler colony on stolen land, built on genocide and slavery and war and imperial plunder. So I'm for shutting down the United States, like overthrowing the United States, turning over all the land back to indigenous sovereignty and giving, basically all the resources as reparations to the indigenous people and African people who were brought here as slaves, because the United States stole all the resources from these oppressed people. And it's international white nationalist imperialist capitalism that is causing climate change and causing pollution and the poisoning of the land. And in order to fix that and fix the world, we need to turn over all the power to indigenous people and African people, to people who don't have this white colonial imperialist mindset, so that they can come up with the right solutions, not capitalism, that are going to save the world. And you know, a lot of the poisoning of the land comes from the geoengineering and the chemtrails and from the genetically modified organisms and factory farming and toxic herbicides and pesticides. So I mean, those like international companies need to be shut down and those things need to be banned.
Thank you very much. All right. I believe very strongly in community buy-in and say-so in regards to the health of land, water, air. And we're talking about which bureau is going to control, which government tier is going to control. The reality is, this is an issue that's close to the health and the welfare of communities, and communities need to have say-so as to their needs. And that, of course, includes indigenous communities. That is a very important part of how we ensure that we make sure there's an equal opportunity for a healthy enjoyment of our environment. We need to protect public lands against exploitation and any plans on the part of the federal government or any tier of government to exploit, including Trump's plans for logging on public lands. I believe strongly in banning logging on public lands. And when we talk about community control, this is very close to home for me, because my community in Youngstown, Ohio, we have a grassroots effort to fight fracking. And one of the ways they've been able to fight the effort to fight fracking is through state preemption, taking the local control out of people's hands and saying, you can't pass a charter amendment in your city saying we ban fracking in this city. This is why we really need to have community control, community buy-in, community boards, and a truly transparent consultation process. Now, I mentioned indigenous people and indigenous people's rights. We have to acknowledge the rapacious effect of aggressive agribusiness in this country and across the world. I'm a strong supporter of organic agriculture. The Green Party is a strong supporter of organic agriculture. And a strong supporter of an agricultural industry that is going to be in harmony with the land and people's rights and health. We've seen in the Amazon, for instance, these horrible pictures, these horrible videos of the Amazon burning, but the mass media is not talking about why that's taking place. It's taking place because Bolsonaro let loose the wolves of industry, let loose people who felt like they can do whatever they want for corporate profit in the Amazon, despite the fact that that land belongs to its indigenous peoples. So we have to make sure that we protect the right of communities to have say over the health and welfare of those communities as it relates to land, water, and our natural resources. Thank you very much, Rhoda.
Yeah, public land should stay public. They're our common wealth. They're our common inheritance as a humanity. The problem we got to watch out is that the public lands, the regulated, have captured the regulators. So you get these, bad logging programs on national forest land. So we got to improve the regulation of public land. Flying in here, I was watching how these developments are encroaching on the farmland. We need public regulation of private land use. That land wasn't made by no capitalist or nobody. It's our common inheritance. So we need to regulate it, find a common way to regulate it and protect, for example, farmland. And people talk about what we need to do with the farmland. We need to get rid of corporate farming and chemicalized agriculture and subsidize the transition for working farmers to organic agriculture with full parity pricing of all commodities and supply management so that the farmers can make a living income above their cost of production. And so I think we need to not just talk about public lands, we need to talk about all the land. And when we get to treaty rights, Native peoples have not got the land they were promised. I could tell you about New York. I live on Onondaga land. And they didn't want to take people's homes. They just wanted a right to say what was going on with the environmental issues in their former full lands. And the court said, you're too late when they brought their land rights forward. Well, we can change that so we can get these treaties, because the treaties are at the level of the Constitution. And if we don't respect the treaties, we can't even be sure about our constitutional rights in the rest of the Constitution. And there's another set of treaties, well, a particular treaty, the Treaty of Hidalgo, Guadalupe, where Mexican Americans have land that's been taken from them that was given to them in that treaty. That's coming out of the War of 1848. The border got moved on the Mexican and indigenous people. And so recognizing treaty rights and land rights I think it's part of protecting the land.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Wilson, excuse me.
Yeah, can you guys hear me better now? I know it was cutting out before. Is
Yes.
that better? I'm absolutely, for public land and private land. Farmers, I work in real estate. I'm a title searcher. So when I've actually been doing a lot of searches on properties that they're subdividing, all these farmlands in the country and all these smaller counties. There's plenty of resources, there's plenty of land right now, there's plenty of broken down buildings, there's plenty of ways that we can organize what we have now using the internet, using the biggest resources, which is the human being, and then of course the internet, where we can connect all these things. Like permaculture is very important. We just have to show how this can be done. Having an app to say, okay, you want to buy, from a farm, or you want to rent out a lot, or you want to rent out a room or something. All these different options that you do, we should be able to organize that through an app, and that's something that the party should be able to facilitate. You go this, awesome. I go this. Let's figure out a way to trade. And I think our biggest thing we can do now is focus on the country, focus on the rural area, and help them organize, help them see that they have these resources, and then create an environment to bring outside culture, bring the city into these country settings, so we can actually have a dialogue, and people can start seeing that these bad policies, this corruption, is affecting all these different identities in a different way. Having your basic things, food, water, clothing, housing, education, and we have the internet, we can educate people. There's no reason why we can't create a quality life with the resources we have now. So we need to focus on these farmers, actually, and document this land. We need to document all these skill sets, because as technology furthers, even some kind of solar flare or something happen, we need to be prepared. And we have to remember that the establishment is not going to give up their power that easy. So we do need some sort of plan in place when they want to start another war, or they want to create chaos in order to again hold on to their stuff. But digitizing all these things that we have
1 minute.
gives us a better perspective, a better a macro perspective, and I think that's the key. And that's something that I would want to do, is actually take. It would be great if we could get all the candidates to go on the road. I know Senator's talking about it, but go on the road and hit these areas and actually go through them and be creative. Say, okay, well, here's how we can do this here. Because Ocean's 11, right? Everybody does their role, their job in order for the collectiveness. Some people can call it socialism, some people can call that capitalism, but everybody's putting their piece in order to work together. So that's kind of the idea we need to push and press, and we need to do the same thing with our farming to co-ops.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Moving on to the second question, which sort of takes off of the public lands, private lands question before. In states like South Dakota, people have started to see oil companies mandating laws to allow basically the raping of the land by outlawing protesting. What would you do in your first act as president to stop this? Or do you feel this is something that should happen? Oil companies, the oligarchy being given that kind of power. We'll start back down again with EQ down there at the end. We pass the microphone down, please.
Oh, no. I want to step back because I think it's really important. David said some stuff, some other folks said stuff. We have to establish three things. One, we are on stolen land. How come we're on stolen land? In May 4th, 1493, the Pope approved the European monarchs to go and discover the world. So, and we're environmentalists in the Green Party. So ecological wisdom is what we talk about. So I think it's really important to establish some facts. We're here on someone else's land. We got here because eminent domain and these racist policies. So as Green Party, and again I push that, we have to become anti-racist. So all of our policies are put in place so that we're the anti-racist party, which abates all this stuff. So we come clearly with, we are not racist. We're not racist because these policies set out in the past and present through oil companies, through private individuals, are not in line with the way we exist and want to exist. So I think we have to agree to that. Secondly, profits over humanity is sick. We're going to kill ourselves. Capitalism is barbaric. So no company should have any say over our existence for our species and this planet. So even before taking office as Moyiwasife Curry, we would have stopped that as a Green Party if we are becoming the anti-racist party, because the majority of Americans who don't vote would be with us. They don't want their homes, the water, everything messed up. So we have to get in line with being anti-racist so that oil companies have no place or space to even speak of that abomination of trying to take our space as human beings. We have the ability, if we are open and loving with our 10 key values, to do what I've been saying from the beginning, get together and we all campaign together to bring the 40% of Americans, the largest political party, in line with understanding what's at stake. Climate change, global warming, it's affecting all of us. Beyond our ethnic groups, beyond our class, beyond anything, our sexuality, we all gonna die if we don't get it together. So that's, I wanna just be really clear, you know, because David said some stuff that was on point, but we have to give the background. Green Party is not the anti-racist party. We just talk nice, but in actual fact, we are not being anti-racist.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lambert. I think that the same legal fiction that created corporations or people is the same one that created people or property. I don't believe that corporations should have any rights above beyond those people who are existing on the land. A little bit of history, as I said, I grew up in Appalachia. My father, his family migrated from England in the late 1600s as indentured servants. They were eventually freed, but they never got enough wealth to move out of Appalachia. My father and his father were not miners, but they had coal miners in their family. My father was telling me about his Uncle Harold, who was 6'2", and they made him crawl through an 18-inch hole with a bucket, and they paid him 2 cents for every bucket of coal that he hauled out of the mountain. Now, when we look at the destructiveness of coal and the coal industry in the 1970s, if you look at the documentary called Hazard County, Kentucky, Hazard County, USA, they discussed how the coal company was blaming black lung on smoking. So now the fracking industry is saying that, well, you know, all these earthquakes that are happening in Youngstown and in Oklahoma, that's not related to fracking, even though we didn't have earthquakes in Youngstown or in Oklahoma prior to the introduction of fracking. My renewable infrastructure investment program addresses our dependence upon fossil fuel that is harmful, deadly, and poisonous. In New Jersey, you can't pump your own gas because the state of New Jersey has declared that petrochemicals are too harmful and hazardous for normal people to handle. One of the very few states that will not allow you to pump your own gas. This is definitely a increasing damage to our environment, and we need to move away from that. There's plenty of other sources to generate electricity through renewable means. One example I like to point out is I did research when I ran for office in 2010 along the Ohio River. There are 28 dams. 19 of those dams generate electricity. Only 2 of them generate electricity beyond the locks and dams, and those 2 just generate electricity for the parks that surround the locks and dams. We can easily retrofit a lot of these locks and dams as well as bridges with hydrokinetic turbines, as well as solar panels and wind turbines. If we're using hydrokinetic, we don't have to worry about battery storage. We have a constant source. As long as the water flows, we will have electricity. We eliminate the need for additional storage. So, bottom line, I don't believe that any of us benefit from corporations making determinations on how we use our land and how we use our resources, especially when we don't tax the extraction of those resources from our lands to pay back to the communities that are destroyed. And George Bush Sr., or Jr. rather, eliminated the Superfund taxing. So we are now in an even worse climate catastrophe in areas where we've allowed corporations to make the laws and the rules for what they can and cannot do in property that they so-called own, and then turn over to the public with huge masses of amounts of contamination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lambert. Mr. Roll. Okay, well, I agree with everything that's said, and Moyo Wasisa Curry said about this, and I want to stress that this has been going back, that European imperialist corporations have been going around the world for 600 years, like stealing resources, like going in and stealing resources from land that belongs to indigenous people. Where I live in Massachusetts in the 17th century, like Massachusetts was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, but it was founded by the Massachusetts Bay Company, which was an imperialist corporation. And these like oil companies that are putting pipelines through the Dakotas, I mean, the Rockefellers in the 19th century like set up these oil companies like Standard Oil, and it's just part of this centuries long thing of these European imperialist corporations, and they have no right to steal oil or pipe oil through indigenous land. It's not a question about like the U.S. Constitution and fixing it. The U.S. Constitution was like designed to serve white colonists by creating a illegitimate country here. So we need to restore the sovereignty of the land in the Dakotas to our moderators people, and then they need to decide like how they're going to develop their land, and if they want to develop their resources and let pipelines through or not. Probably I don't think they'll want pipelines, but there are resources on their lands that they can develop or not develop, and like I'm sure they will treat things in a sustainable way and be a lot better stewards of the land than the United States and these oil companies have been.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe.
First and foremost, we need to end the extraction of fossil fuels, period. We need to switch to 100% renewable energy, and we need public ownership of utilities so that we have public community control. Now, regarding the issue of protesting and our First Amendment rights, yes, we need to pass laws to protect and enshrine those rights, but we also need to recognize that we have judges that are bought and sold as well. And case law matters. As a lawyer, I can attest to that. So we absolutely need to make sure that we put people in place who are interpreting the laws such that we can protect our First Amendment rights to protest. Your representatives, your elected representatives, be they judges, be they legislators, and your state legislators, unfortunately, many of them are owned by corporate interests. They're owned by big oil. And so the big elephant in the room is the democratic deficit. The fact that you are being cheated out of real decision-making in this country. We need to take money out of politics, we need to take corporate control out of politics, and this means we need to end Citizens United corporate personhood. We need proportional representation in this country. We need ranked choice voting. We need open debates, and we need public financing, so the public has a fair choice to get their say genuinely represented. Now, in Youngstown, Ohio, which was name checked earlier by my colleague, in my town, we faced an effort to pump massive amounts of money into saying that our effort to ban fracking in the city was a job killer. It was an evil job killer. Glossy mailers went to every single household. There were people who were campaigning at the polls, paid to do so. We were a grassroots effort of neighbors and friends. How do you go up against that? Together, what we're going to do as a party, but also as a movement, is to take that moneyed corporate interests out of politics altogether. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that there's an element to this of environmental racism. You have this extraction of resources, in many cases taking place on indigenous people's lands, and pipelines going through indigenous people's lands, in effect, without their say-so, taking advantage of their rights, of their lands, and that must stop.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Mr. Hawkins.
It's pretty amazing that we're debating what we're going to do about a law to criminalize protests when we have a First Amendment. It just shows how far corporate authoritarianism has gone and how these corporate interests have bought the government, including the judiciary. So what can the president do? Well, they can appoint an attorney general that's committed to protecting the First Amendment. And I'm sure that, you know, people in the public, nonprofits are going to sue to say these laws are against the First Amendment, and the Department of Justice can weigh in support of those lawsuits. So I think that's one thing the president can do. The other thing is use the platform. They call it the bully pulpit. And, you know, if it was me, I'd go out and protest. I mean, I got on record of that, going back to the Clamshell Alliance, we organized occupied nuclear power plant sites. Labor Day weekend, I was up in northern Michigan fighting Enbridge Line 5 at the invitation of some Anishinaabe Indians who were leading that fight. Now I'm retired, I'm going to get out to North Dakota and South Dakota, XL Keystone Pipeline. That's where this thing is coming from. I've just got off probation for a couple of anti-fracking and anti-fossil fuel infrastructure busts. So if I was president, I mean, I'd probably have to ask a lawyer about this. And my inclination would be to go out there and protest damn Exxon. Watch out, Exxon, I just got off probation.
Protesting. Well, let's talk about what exactly that they be protesting. It's corruption, and it's really censorship of the problem and of the issue. And when there's something going on, and people have the right, First Amendment, to you know, speak up. And I just find it. I find it interesting because the problem is why things don't change is because we do this group thing and people, in order to fight the other person, it's like playing Super Bowl, especially if you have that two-party ideology where you have to pick a side and you don't believe that a third party is viable. But then you get the third party people, which again, they excuse certain behavior in their own party in order to, again, viable. And they're operating just like the D. First, it's educating people on what's going on. Follow the money. Show how people are using these resources, why they're doing it. And that's something that we don't even have the discussion on here. Because when you're censoring people, like I've been censored on the Green Party main page. People are censoring me from sharing co-chairs and committee members doing a draft, draft chat and using their resources to make sure that I become the nominee and organizing around the Green Party in order to not have to involve everybody else in. So when we're protesting, how can we do that? It's being creative. There's another thing. the question itself. If we're not, if you notice that when they were in DAPL, the time when they actually halted it was when the veterans came out. So these people they co-opt organizations, they do a lot of black exploitation. They use those in order to keep their power base, because and that's how they do it. That's how they co-opt things. So we have to be clear and understanding that when we're making moves, that the cultural, we have to understand that the culture, they exploit, like in the black community, and the value of the black culture is so high. If the black community understood the power of this, there could be a lot more things. Just like all these other identities as a collective, we can stamp out all the way that they use these identities in politics. But we have to be very clear and understand what it is we're protesting and why it's important, and that allows other people to engage with you, rather than just being about one. Hello?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, we are having problems.
Am I breaking up?
Yes, you're breaking up again, unfortunately. Is there a way for you to switch to just straight audio? That might take care of the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can, if it's okay with all of you, we can give them extra time on this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for that, and also wanted to deal with the black appropriation culture-wise as a degree, black woman in black studies. I'm really concerned about it.
We can do that.
His use of black culture.
You can,
Okay, give it a shot, Chad.
is that better? Are we doing any better there?
Yes, I believe we are.
Maybe. All right. We need to. I don't know what anybody heard or where I'm protesting. It's the corruption, it's the censorship, and we don't have any right or any high ground to even protest outside of the party when we have censorship going on in the party and we have corruption going on in the party, and we have people using the party's resources to push money and energy and things the direction that they want it to go. So censorship, silencing people that speak up, that's a big key issue. I'm on it with the party. Like, we have to fix it with the party. Nobody's going to believe that we're what we say we are until we show that we don't put up with that here. It's kind of ridiculous to pretend we're a grassroots party when you have co-chairs and committee members cheating to make certain people the nominee, using the resources, going around making things official Green Party events.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. At this time, Ms. Mawasifa Sifa Curry had a rebuttal towards your use of black culture. You have 2 minutes.
The most educated group of Americans look like me. We're the most degreed group in this nation. But how come I'm the only one running? I'm not the only black woman that's bad, sharp, smart. I'm not. But it's patriotism, it's sexism, and white privilege that exists within our party. This book, I'll keep raising it up. If our party took up being anti-racist, we would have the floodgates of folks of color and progressive European Americans who understand the importance of being anti-racist. And I'm gonna make it real clear. Either you're anti-racist or you're not. It ain't no in-between ground. I'm calling everybody a racist who's not anti-racist. Chad made 3 very good points, but I want to stick to the black stuff. There's an agenda. It's called the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination. We know what we want. We ain't ask nobody. We don't need nobody to tell us what we can and can't do. We got it. We got a 19-point plan that our campaign pushes. Plus, our campaign has asked 45 sisters of color to step up and run for governor and senator. Let's change this by flipping this male switch off and flip it on a sister of color. It's really that simple. You all are nice people, but you don't need to be running. Get women up here. Come on, girls. Come on. Get women. Let's stop this crap. None of these brothers, love 4 of them, need to be up here. I'm glad they're here and I want us to all go and campaign, but we need to flip the switch on male. Done. Y'all didn't get it right for how many years? Let's just stop and say it, women. We need women. What do we need to say? We need women. So I'm now calling y'all out. I think I've had 3 people to run for governor since I've been here. You have a governorship coming up. Come on, run, women. They ain't that smart. Come on, they ain't fixed it. Let's fix it. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's gonna be my campaign. Y'all need to sit down somewhere.
At this time, I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson? You have a 1-minute rebuttal if you would like it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely, but I think it needs to be talked about, you know, white boys that understand what's going on, because we want to help. And sometimes, depending on where someone else is, there's a hard line of discussion to have, because some people feel like you're exploiting the thing as a white person trying to speak up on black issues. And then of course sometimes people want you know, white people to speak up on issues. So there is a little bit of confusion. And I think that's what's so important to have the discussion. And we have to realize too that inside our culture, sometimes we have blind spots and things that we don't recognize, and that people outside can see it. That's why the black community can see, you know, all the little details that the white people miss.
Thank you very much,
And
Mr. Wilson.
same thing, because we get caught up on cultural things, but we need to talk about them and not feel threatened. You know, so I'm agreeing, but adding to what you're saying.
Thank you very much. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will move towards your final statements to end at our preferred ending time. You each have 3 minutes.
That's it?
That is it.
No, what happened to debate? I'm against the Green New Deal. I want to talk about ecological wisdom and system change. This ain't no debate. No, I came here to debate.
Well, if you can get them to argue with you during your
Okay,
time,
I think Howie and Dario, you all are off base with Green New Deal. Number 1, we need a system change. Capitalism, you say that, nice socialist, is barbaric. And I'm saying you are agreeing to capitalism when you want a deal and not a change. So I'm calling Dario and Howie's Green New Deal dead on arrival. Debate me and I can handle it. Ecological wisdom is system change. If you look at the models of economics, one is corporate, one is natural, and what you're talking about is illogically crazy and unnatural and unsustainable. You can make $60 in America, but if your rent is $2,000, you still broke. I'm done. I can go. Come on, say something. Sister ready to slap backs. I'm calling out the Green New Deal as sick and capitalistic in nature. For ecological wisdom and ecological and economics as a system of change for our nation.
I call my Green New Deal the eco-socialist Green New Deal for a reason. We are taking over under public ownership and democratic administration the energy sector, the railroads. We got to build bullet trains, rebuild the trolleys, the light rails in the cities, as well as electrify freight, and some under the public sector, as well as manufacturing, like we did during World War II, because, you know, all these democratic proposals, which isn't through the public sector except for Bernie Sanders on the energy. All those proposals are all about subsidies and incentives and regulations. And, you know, the Coke Brothers and Exxon are not going to just take that line down. We're not going to take their fossil fuel profits and put them into renewables. We got to take them over. Now that's system change. No doubt about it. Well, I contend that it is. Social ownership and democratic administration of major means of production is a socialist system. It needs to be an eco-socialist because we need to produce our basic needs within ecological limits. That's different than capitalism. It all cares about is the profit. So, I beg to differ.
Ma'am, you have a minute rebuttal if you would, like it?
Ecological economics is interdisciplinary, and what happens is an evolutionary human form. Still, there's no infrastructure to what they're talking about. Let's be clear. You are still within this U.S. capitalist nature. If you don't change the system of capitalism, you are participating in it. As I'm saying to both of you all, if you're not anti-racist, and that means policies, institutions in place to stop being racist. For example, our campaign has set up the Shirley Chisholm Political Leadership Institute for training. The reason how come folk of color, black women not up here, they've not been recruited, trained, and supported the same way Green New Deal. There's no structure in place in a capitalist system to do what you're doing. You just, it's nice words. It's nice, but it ain't no system.
Rabbi, you have your 2 minutes. Thank you very much. First and foremost, I'm going to say that we're not going to solve the planet's seriously pressing problems, including racism, including man-made climate change, unless we learn how to work together. And that's why, while I support the Green New Deal, I also do believe the Green New Deal is not enough, and we need additional measures. That's why our campaign has advanced the Green Path Forward, because we do need to work with other nations, put aside the bigotry, put aside the racism, put aside all the barriers that the capitalist overlords in this country have convinced you need to be in place, and work together with people as brothers, as sisters, as human beings. We recognize that what's happening today is that China, Russia, these are countries that have the top carbon output, and we are not engaging in fruitful diplomacy with them at this time. In many ways, the West has outsourced its carbon output to China through manufacturing. And so when we talk about 100% renewable energy and the Green New Deal, what's happening between California and New Jersey, we're not solving the planetary problem. We need to learn how to work together. As far as addressing issues of racism, as a son of an Iranian immigrant, as an African-American man, as someone who is a representative of a community that has been racially disenfranchised through educational racism, through environmental racism, this is something that is very close to home to me. That's why our campaign has the People of Color Bill of Rights, so we can tackle issues like access to justice, to deal with the broken justice system, the school-to-prison pipeline, which feeds people into the new slavery, mass incarceration. We need to tackle these issues. We need to deal with issues of native sovereignty. We need to deal with issues with the predatory banking and lending industry, the redlining that goes on in this country still to this day in over 60 metro urban areas. We need to deal with this on a comprehensive scale, not just in terms of the racism and our environmental issue with climate change, but also what's happening in everyday racism in America's communities. Our campaign has a targeted solution to deal with this. We are providing the answers, and we're doing it without attacking or getting involved in any kind of ad hominem, because we want to work together with everyone.
All right. Thank you very much. Ma'am?
Thank you.
1 minute rebuttal to that as
Really
well.
simple. Joseph, did I outreach to you?
Yes,
Did I push you past yourself?
yes.
Okay, let's just get real frank here. We're a small party with big ideas, but unless you talk to each other, I set up campaign meetings, right? Brother never even showed up on one meeting. How he did, I give you that credit. So talk is nice, but when you don't put in the structure, for example, we all show up to each state, go to 5 places and push our ideas, have discussion and dialogues, brings people in. But when you're excluding folks, how do you get privilege to be at events we're not invited to? Come on, let's just stop the crap. That's crap. And they're going to say it out loud. You ain't showed up to one meeting where we put together, and how we did our giving math. So talk is cheap. Action speaks louder than words.
Thank you very much.
say in less than 15 seconds. Stop the negativity, let's work together. I'm not going to participate in anything that's about dividing anyone. We all need to work together, and I'd appreciate it if we could respect people's
I'm respecting the truth.
holding the
Did you
floor.
show up or not on the meeting, on the calls? How he did, I give him that.
Work together, hold hands as breathe as human beings, and let's resolve the problems in this country together. It isn't about any one human being. It isn't about me, Daryl Hunter. It isn't about my sister here, who I respect. It is about us all learning how to solve the world's problems by working together. If we're engaging in negativity, you are excluding people through the negativity, not the other way around. And people have a right to not want to buy into things that are divisive rather than being united. So I had an event yesterday with my brother here, Mr. Hawkins, who I don't agree with on a lot of things. But we talked about solutions, and even though we disagree, we have to learn how to work together. Mr. Wilson.
Let me, listen, anybody who says that talking about the issues in the party is divisive is culpable of being part of the problem. You cannot censor people from having these issues, telling, oh, we're divisive, oh, we're attacking. No, actually, we're speaking of criticism. The first time in history, everybody are so engaged, and then you've got Howie and his camp cheating. They literally said, we're going to do a plan, we're going to pick a candidate, and we're going to use all the resources in order to do that. Don't tell me people are being divisive when we're trying to actually discuss the conversation that these
Oh, we lost.
other parties aren't. But what do you do? People are being assholes to people. People are being assholes to people. Talking down to people when people are trying to help. Criticizing someone for what their actions are is not the same thing as attacking or being divisive. You have to care about the party. And if you don't care about the cheating of what's going on in Hawkins' campaign, then you don't actually care about growing the party.
That's it.
30 seconds.
So, we're all adults here. We are all adults here. If an adult invites you to a meeting and you choose not to be there, you're not being negative. I've said very clearly, Howie has showed up to every meeting. I don't agree with him, but I respect him showing up with only presidential candidates, so you can hear. We can decide. Ian didn't show up, nor did Dario. That's immaturity for me. And we have an agenda. Everybody can impact the agenda. So negativity, no. I'm just tired of the crap. And you all, we grown people. And if you choose not to come on, don't call me negative, because I'm inviting you. All this extra work is being done by me. The PCSC are the people who are supposed to coordinate us. I'm the PCSC because every time anybody needs everybody's number, who sent it to them? 20 times I have copied and pasted and sent everybody's information to anybody who wants to interview us. So let's be clear. I'm like the co-chair. Our campaign has been since February, getting people involved and figuring out what we can all agree on. I send that to everybody. So the most positive person in this campaign is me, because I don't want anybody excluded or anyone's idea. But I am never again not going to call people out. Dario and Ian ain't showed up to no meetings. Howie's campaign has had privilege, white male privilege of being invited, where other of us have been excluded. Howie, will you stop doing that? Yes or no? Ian and Dario, will you show up to meetings? Yes or no?
You can rebut if we would like.
It's a question. We grown.
Do they say amen in the synagogue? Because that's what I felt like saying earlier.
Look,
I'm being asked to stop being invited. In other words, I asked to stop
No.
other people from doing what they did.
Campaign
Doesn't make
stop
any
cheating.
sense.
Stop
No.
cheating.
Nobody's
Asking you to stop cheating.
Will you acknowledge that you have been privileged to do stuff where I've not been invited? It's a yes or no.
Campaign chairs,
That's all that.
committee members,
So, first thing I want to point out is, because I have the floor right now, I would please ask that the moderator actually prevent other people from speaking over people, because last time, I spent most of my time trying to argue with someone while it's supposed to be my time on the floor. So I'm just going to, as a professional request. My response is very simple. As I mentioned earlier, we need to keep this positive, we need to work on solutions. My community doesn't want to hear about these particular internecine warfare issues going on in the Green Party. They want to hear about how we're going to deal with workers' rights, because we got people who are striking in Lordstown and Youngstown. They want to hear about how we're going to deal with the educational racism that the children in a failed school district under a state takeover in Youngstown are dealing with. They want to hear about how we can stop fracking happening in their backyard. And we need to talk about solutions. If we're going to have a debate, let's have a debate about those things. Let's have a debate about how we're going to save this country from the many ways in which they've been cheated out of its rights. Let's have a debate about how we're going to save this planet together. But we're not going to have self-absorbed control of the agenda by certain people who just want to take things over and make it all about themselves, when we have a whole planet full of people to save together. Either you want to hold hands and save this planet together, or you want us all sink fighting each other. It's not about egos, it's not about individuals, it's about a planet full of problems we have to solve, and we need to put aside all our differences and get over ourselves.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Now,
Can I respond to that, please? Can I respond, please? Let me respond to that, because obviously he went that over.
Mr. Wilson.
Listen, man.
Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, Mr.
She
Wilson.
went,
You have a closing statement that you can use your time to respond to anybody that you would like. You have a 3-minute statement time, you can use that.
Understood.
At this time, I would like to go back to Ms. Nawasifa Curry to finish her closing statement.
Thank
She
you.
still has 2 minutes left.
Thank you.
As much as I appreciate all of you being passionate about it, any more and we're done.
Got you.
Okay.
No, we got you. Let's be real clear. I'm asking questions. I'm a black woman who's been discriminated against. I can't
Your
pretend
time
that
started.
it started. I've been discriminated against, but it hasn't stopped me from showing up. Being black and being proud of who I am means I have to stand up and speak the truth. I represent 600 years of black folks in this nation. So this question are questions that black folk gonna ask me. This, as I shared to you, unless we're anti-racist, you're racist, and I'm gonna start saying that. The second is 19 points of black self-determination. That's our campaign. The second thing is I'm asking 45 women of color, sister friends, to run for office. Governor, as well as senator. Those are listed in our campaign. Let's just be real. We're human. Humans have vulnerabilities. But in a democracy, this is about structure. And it's about follow through. And we've not experienced that. I'm gonna say it again. I've been discriminated against. But I'm saying it out loud. We've put out 2-3 statements. We've done enough. Now it's time to call people out. It's not personal, it's political. It is political. I am a 4th generation black farmer who cares about the soil. I joined this party knowing I had to help in white privilege. I know that. So be uncomfortable with me. We've all been racist. I've had to go through a deconstruction process myself. I've been connected to the nation of Ghana for 31 years. Only 6 weeks ago, I stopped saying developing country. I'm asking each of you to challenge yourselves, and I'm going to repeat myself. I'm asking the question, Howie, no one's asking you to not run, to stop, not do what you're doing. We're asking you to stop allowing discrimination to happen against women of color and other candidates. Dario and Ian, I'm asking you to show up to a meeting. This is not an attack, it's a question. Much love and peace from South Central LA.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lambert, 3 minutes.
Besides Ms. Moyafisi Curry, I'm the only candidate who's actually called the Green Party out for racism and white supremacy and asked that they adopt immediately a platform on the national and state platforms, a anti-racism, anti-white supremacy program, as well as a purge of all white supremacists and racists from government agencies, because we don't need our tax dollars supporting hatred. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I too have been excluded from a number of different things. I have reached out to a lot of the state parties and gotten no response about attending events. Joe, I love you, brother. You invited me back in May, and I said, well, I wanted to go to Idaho because
I want to help these guys that are starting out their party. This is why I'm running, because I'm not really somebody who should be running. I come from a poor family. You know, I'm unemployed. I'm running to try to get other people to run for office. That's the only reason why I'm running. I know I'm not delusional. I'm crazy, but I'm not delusional enough to think that I'm going to win the election. But I know from my previous experiences running for office that I can influence the major parties. I believe that we can do that, and I have mentioned this a number of times, and I have joined setting them on a number of instances, saying that every person of color needs to join the Green Party and take it over. We need to get rid of all these old white supremacists and people who are willing to allow prejudice to go on in a party that's supposed to support grassroots democracy and equality. That's not equality. I believe that we should be going forward. We need to build our party, and that's the only way we're going to succeed. There's already over 60% of the voters are not registered with the Democrats or Republicans. How many are registered with Greens? Probably about 3%. Why aren't we going after that other 60%? Why aren't we going after Republicans and Democrats who are sick of the issues that they're going back and forth? Because it's just a fight for power. I'm against having decentralized power, and the example of our prejudice against us, that's also a Green Party platform. One of the 10 key values is decentralization and having the party determine who is going to be the nominee before we even get to cast the first ballot 4 months before the first primary, to exclude 5 people who have spent their own money and raised money from other people to campaign is not decentralization. It's not democracy. It's not green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lambert. Mr. Roll, 3 minutes. Okay, well, I've been calling the whole time to shut down the United States and for us to have decolonization, reparations, and self-determination for Africans, indigenous people, and all oppressed people. So I've been trying to push the Green Party to oppose white power as well. The issue of the Hawkins campaign, like being run by party insiders who use their positions to try to exclude the other candidates, is a real issue. Like the Utah Green Party next month is not going to allow me and a couple other candidates to have 5 minutes at their convention because the person who's running their semi-annual meeting, because the person, Brendan, who's in the room, who is running this meeting, is like works for the Hawkins campaign and is trying to exclude us. So they're using arbitrary criteria to exclude us. You know, and I don't want to talk about the Green Party primary process at the debates. I want to talk about the issues, but they're forcing me to talk about this. And I say revolution, not New Deal. I mean, when the people who talk, the Green Party people who talk about the Green New Deal, they do talk about a lot of good ideas, but the phrase New Deal is a Democrat Party phrase, of like Franklin Roosevelt, like trying to stop a communist revolution because the Soviet Union was really big at that time in the 30s. So in order to save capitalism, they offered like some crumbs to white people in the United States, not even to black people, and that didn't even work because they had to have a world war to get themselves out of the depression. And so New Deal is a Democrat slogan, and so it's really easy for the Democrats to reappropriate Green New Deal. And then we have this like foundation-funded climate strike, global climate strike thing, and everybody running global climate strike supports the Democrat Party phony Green New Deal, which doesn't have any change, and it's really difficult for us to go there and say our Green New Deal is different, because I mean they're using the same word. So it was really poor term for the Green Party to use the term Green New Deal. We need a revolution, not a New Deal. And how much more time do I have? 30 seconds. Okay, so I want to also say that for Palestine, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. We must stop all funding to the Zionist entity. A so-called Israel is an illegitimate white settler colony on stolen land, just like the United States is, and it needs to be shut down. And I want to say I also support 9/11 Truth, the 9/11 attacks in New York City were, and the Pentagon were a falsified perpetrated by people close to the Zionist and U.S. regime. Muslims and Arabs had nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks, and we need to stop using that.
Thank you very much,
as
Mr. Rose.
excuse for wars against Muslims and Arabs.
Rabbi? The focus of my campaign has been on the massive inequalities and privilege that we experience in this country. And we need to recognize that while we're unpacking this privilege and we're engaging in the task of bringing power back to the people, that privilege has layers. It isn't lost on me that there is a national disgrace in this country. While there's a national disgrace, it looms particularly large in my mind as I'm in this region. And I'm bringing up this issue for a reason. In regards to the status of indigenous peoples in this country, 27% are in poverty, 69% unemployment persists in the Blackfoot sovereign nation. 3 of the 5 poorest counties are Sioux. Poorest counties in the nation. 45% of indigenous women have experienced physical abuse, and the Department of Justice report indicates that 80% of that physical abuse, those rapes, were by non-Native Americans. The dropout rate is twice the national average. 90,000, over 90,000 are underhoused, without a home. The healthcare disparity is stark and severely underfunded. And that's not even mentioning the exploitation of resources on native lands, the barriers put in place to vote, the limited financial resources of native people. Why am I mentioning this? This is one amongst many lenses through which we can view the severe inequalities in this country. It is unconscionable, it is a human rights abuse, and under an eco-socialist government, it will not exist because we will empower communities. We give ownership over all of the means of human fulfillment as well as planetary fulfillment so we can heal this planet. And we will empower minority communities and indigenous people to have say and control over their own affairs within the context of their own cultures with respect for their own cultures. We've laid out a very ambitious platform, an ambitious platform for access to justice, for a right to housing, right to education, right to water, to clean air, clean soil, 100% renewable energy in this country so that we can share a clean planet. But until we unpack the many layers of privilege, and yes, I am a part of that, even though I'm an openly gay man, an African-American man, and son of an immigrant, I'm also a man, and that's privilege. I am cisgender, and that's privilege. We need to unpack all those layers of privilege, and we need an eco-socialist government where we can share and share alike and hold hands as a people together to solve these problems, which we can only solve by acknowledging those problems together. I thank you for your time. I encourage you to visit DarrellHunter.com to learn more about the campaign. Please also sign the sign-up sheet at that table in the back. And of course, I wish money was out of politics, but unfortunately it isn't. So I also encourage you to please contribute if you think this campaign, which seeks to bring the voices of the voiceless to the masses, deserves to have a platform. Please assist with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkins, 3 minutes.
We only scratched the surface in terms of issues that could have been discussed. I mean, we really only got to 3 or 4, I think. So I'm going to be around till 6 if people want to ask me questions about different issues. I'll be around. I think I'll take a couple minutes to talk about, an issue we've been talking about is racism in this country. How do we, what I would want to say is the way we get rid of white supremacy is with black power for black people, brown power for brown people, like the Panthers used to say, right through the Rainbow. The Rainbow Coalition, Fred Hampton came up with that term. And what does that mean practically? Well, we implemented Green New Deal. We go around the mayors and the governors in allocating the reconstruction funds for this new economy and go right down to the neighborhood level where people are. We're going to talk about community control of the police, the schools, the housing, and the businesses. Because the problem with racism, the people with wrong attitudes, and that changes slowly, but we can get rid of the living, breathing racists in position of power that serve as the gatekeepers, the employers that discriminate. The damn real estate industry discriminates right and left. The country's more segregated than it was a century ago. The police, the lawyers, and the judges. All these gatekeepers. If oppressed communities have control of their own communities and the resources in them, then the racists got to go, they don't have no power over them. You got, racism is prejudice plus power. Let's take the power from the racists. So, we can talk more about that. And I'll be around, and I got a sign-up sheet if you want to hear what my campaign is doing. get on there and we'll be sending you regular emails. And of course, we'll ask you for money. I got to donate points too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Wilson, 3 minutes.
Yes, all this is not going to happen unless we actually effectively break up the two-party system, which means the third party has to come in and show that a third voice, an outside voice of that two-party structure is actually able to move this over to the window, to rock the establishment. That's why people think, the problem is people think, the people against corruption. That's what they're against. And I don't agree with saying everybody come to the party for this reason, for our grassroots, our four pillars, and then saying when you come here, if we're acting out and not following those, quiet, because that's internal politics, and people don't want to hear that. Actually, I think people want to hear that party actually has these discussions. Actually says, wait a second, hey, it's something that you're doing. When people come in, we need to give them the opportunity to say how they can help. Where do you see that we can change? How can we help you? How do you feel? Because everybody fell victim to the propaganda. We have to explain to them and make sure with the people that are already with us how that propaganda has affected that output, all these boilerplate race issues that we keep talking about. Now, as long as Howie and the little toxic crew keep cheating, and now that Darrell's on board, he was very open and very against what they were doing before, but now that he's on the inside club, he's very silent. Let's not talk about the issue, because unless we get the party ready for the general, all this talk about what we're going to do if we get in the thing means nothing. We have to be honest about how we represent ourselves. We have to be honest about what kind of behavior is pushing people away. The toxic people, we have to talk about that. And if we don't, all this identity politics and everything that you've done and every religion that you're with, okay, I'm tired of, I want religion and state to be separate, to actually be separate. And I don't want any more lawyers, and I don't want any career candidates. I'm sorry. I want to talk real shit, and I want to make some things move. Have these real discussions rather than playing high school politics. Let's be cool.
1 minute.
Chad Wilson, you can go at Chad Wilson 2020. Listen, I want to break up the two-party system. I'm tired of that. And there's a way that we can leverage the third-party vote. We can tell the Bernie, say, hey, you want to make sure that the Bernie supporters, you want to make sure that Bernie gets the nomination? Make sure that we get on every ballot so we put that pressure on. You can even go to Trumpsters. We need to give up the Clintons. We need to give up Obama. We need to ask for Epstein's names. What kind of fucking party are we if we're not talking about the shit that matters, that affects the world? Hello? This is the opportunity, 2020. We have the internet. We can connect. We have all these different voices, but we can't hide them and say, let's not talk about things that are actually preventing change. You're preventing change now. I'm not. I'm talking about the toxic behavior. I'm sorry. I'm actually fixing the party, not, joining every other party and coming along when someone asks me to join, or, how many people that drafted Howie are on your payroll now? Tell me that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Time. Mr. Schlackman, if you're still with us,
Can I get a closing statement?
you can have 3 minutes.
I'd like to have a closing statement.
Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank David, Chad, and Dennis in particular for making sure I could be here today. I definitely want to thank Joe Evans. Is Joe the moderator? Because I can't see him.
Jason Prettyboy is the moderator. I'm just running tech support.
Oh, great. Well, I really want to thank the moderator, Jason Prettyboy, because I know that wasn't an easy thing to moderate, and I think you did a fantastic job, and I appreciate that, Jason. My hat's off to you. So I just, I am not going to talk about my platform, but I do just want to slip in that racism, as other people have talked about, is an enormous problem in this country, and I think you need to see no further than the El Paso shooting, where a young white man literally said, he's going down to the border to shoot brown people because he felt they were invading his country. And the answer to racism is revolutionary socialism and a human rights-based economic system, which I wish I could talk about, but unfortunately because of my boycott, I cannot. So I think this is a little more relevant to what we've heard here today. We fellow candidates, except for one, Mr. Hawkins, have written 3 letters to the Presidential Campaign Support Committee, which if you all join the Green Party, you will be a part of, and you can add people to the board of. And those letters have basically gone unresponded. And we kind of saw this coming, the Green Party primary was not being handled well, it was not being regulated well. There's an effort now to get 5 of the candidates that you see here today out, so it's just 2 candidates. And I think what's not being said is that the Green Party convention is actually not until July in Detroit. So I don't understand why just 2 candidates will be debating for months and months and months on end. It's going to get a little boring, I think, with just 2 candidates. I'd like to see more unity in the party. And I blame the situation that we're in today with so much cross-fighting and bitterness on the fact that the Presidential Campaign Support Committee has simply ignored our letters, has not done our job. I appreciate all those who are trying to form their own committees and get on the same page as other candidates, but I think for me personally, I'm calling for a boycott because I think the Presidential Campaign Support Committee can do a lot better than this. It would lead to more harmony and unity in the party, but there's clearly enough time for every candidate to get their position out, and at the end, every candidate can cheer when the final nominee is chosen, not be bitter and angry towards each other. So, if you all are considering joining the party, if you're members already, please consider talking to the Presidential Campaign Support Committee. We don't need more bitterness and divisiveness in the party, I completely agree. But these things need to be addressed immediately, or that's what's going to happen. You're going to see a lot of people exiting the party because they're not going to stand by the toxicity. Just the other day, a Green Party co-chair who clearly supports Mr. Hawkins was angrily lying and attacking me over and over and over again for speaking out on this. And it's fellow candidates who drafted most of the letters out there, not myself. So with that, I'll leave you all to it, and I hope that you hope this has been enlightening for everyone.
Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for all of your time, for coming out and listening for the debate. I will give you one tidbit of mine. I once had to moderate a debate between Max Baucus and Mrs. Shirley Chisholm.
That's it.
So you guys, while I like listening to you argue and things like that, you're still...
Babies!
I think I got you guys. All right, but thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for letting me moderate this, Joe. Thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you for coming, Jason.
And again, they will be available for the rest of the day. I believe most of you will be available for the rest of the day. So you can come and talk to them if you have more questions about what's going on and if you have more questions of them. Thank you.
Did you take a picture with all of us? Oh,
Thank you. Oh, you stole my soul.
we went in the White House. When I'm in the White House, I want to put it up.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
You're gonna steal my soul, though.
No way.
That's why you need it. Don't take photos.
Thank you, guys.